Oh, I tell you one thing, I've just, good evening and welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View. Thank you to everyone who subscribed to the channel. Thank you to everyone who watches the channel. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. We need to get the numbers up because we've got the aim for a new target, and there's a big chunk of people that watch the videos don't subscribe to the channel. Why not? Anyway, we move on because Brian Wilson has spoken. Celtic are shiting themselves. They get out Brian Wilson. We need to get the numbers up because I am going to listen to, for those that maybe haven't listened to the Brian Wilson statement. No, you go ahead with the boycott. Lauren said, "Question: did they postpone the boycott or go? You go ahead with it. You've got them on. You've got them on the run. You do not back off now. You go ahead with the boycott on Saturday, and you put pressure on this board. You do not back off now. There's nothing. There's nothing worse. I'm going to play the interview from the Celtic website, and we're going to talk about parts of it so that Celtic don't try and do their usual dirty and try and claim copyright over the audio. Fuck them. Let's listen to this.
On the very positive side, on the field of play, which is really where it ultimately matters, thanks to Martin and Sean and the players and everyone.
So he basically said the start of the interview, everything's fine. I'm going to jump forward because
So we've got all to play for, and
we've got it all to play for.
The main thing for the club at any time. On the strategic changes that I spoke about, and that work is ongoing. To some extent, it's been sidetracked by the focus over the past few weeks on the transfer window, but it's very much active and going ahead, and we will have quite a lot to say about that in the near future. Obviously, on the immediate issues of supporters and the frustrations and in some cases the problems that exist there, then there hasn't been as much progress as I would like to see. And again, that is something which we now turn our attention to.
Now, he goes on in the interview to say that obviously that they blame the transfer window, they blame some of the other things, and he's talking about for a very articulate pensioner that has have a wealth of experience with media and politics throughout his career. He was very nervioso. He was very nervioso and kept on looking up and looking at different ways and couldn't focus on the interviewee or the camera. Body language experts will say that he's talking shite, to put it in layman's terms, like me and you, council estate lads. You know, in our talk, he was waffling. But anyway, we'll listen to a bit more of him.
Individual to make a judgment of whether a boycott. Right. And I'm no way dismissing them or marginalising them. On the contrary, we want to engage with them. But the short-term imperative is to support the team, and it's up to each individual to make a judgment of whether a boycott, being outside the stadium or inside the stadium, helps that. But that's for people to judge.
Now, in political terms, this is a game of hearts and minds that Brian Wilson is playing. In the political theatre, because they call it theatre, they call war theatre. This is a game of hearts and minds, and this is why he was pulling the heartstrings. It's up to individual people, you know, trying to split the fan base, as if the fan base isn't split enough. But you get nothing better than a politician trying to win over the hearts and minds of football fans.
What I can say is, and I accept that there hasn't been as much engagement as I would have liked over the past month for a range of reasons, but most recently mainly because of the focus on the transfer window. But what I can also say is that we have reached out. We've reached out to every supporters group, and I hope these meetings will take place within the next week or so. And
so, in other words, because the boycott was called last night and today, there's been a bit of pressure on you. You have finally yielded. We should have done the boycott. Anglin Ayrshire says boycotts don't work. Well, why have the Celtic board come out tonight with this statement? That's all that I'm saying. I call bullshit. Yeah, we're going to listen to a bit more of it because it's very interesting. He said that he had reached out to the Celtic fans and groups. Now, as of last night, as of the 3rd of February, on the evening of the 3rd of February, when the Celtic Fans Collective had the meeting online that I had attended, not one single fans group had been contacted by Celtic Football Club. This is reactionary. This is politicians at their best, winning over the hearts and minds. This is a reaction to the impending boycott. People say boycotts don't work. Yes, they do. Puts pressure on them, and it's squeaky bum time with the board.
And then let's see if we can go forward. There is no reluctance on my part to engage, and I hope that can be put into practice very soon.
So there's no reluctance to him engage, but the fans groups have made contact over the last month to try and get conversations started, and they've been turned down by the club. Brian Wilson then goes on to say that he wants to talk to every single supporter. Every single supporter, and he says that he would like to, and it gets interesting because he does a typical politician thing. I mean, I think he's been looking at Nigel Farage type statements. I was down the pub and I met someone. I met 4 wee geezers. Story that maybe never even happened, but we'll just put this story out anyway. It's a game of hearts and minds, remember. You have to remember that this is a seasoned politician from the Labour Party.
So just going back on that, you have reached out to fans groups. How much do you hope that, in a sense, getting around the table can sort out the issues at hand?
Well, to some extent, you know, I think the other side is saying unity inside the stadium is one thing. We're not going to agree on everything about some of these issues, but we can
answer the question. Have you or have you not reached out to the fans? And he
talk about them, but don't let it distract from what's going on inside the stadium. That's all I'm asking for. But I don't see any insuperable barriers. What I want to see is a full Celtic Park with a great atmosphere and everyone behind the team, which is what I've experienced over the decades that I've been going to Celtic Park.
Whoa, you want a great atmosphere, yet you ban supporters and you haven't given a full excuse why this ban is still continuing, and they've missed how many games now, Brian? Maybe it was because the pressure of the full stadium standing up, singing, stand up if you hate the board. Maybe got them thinking a little bit. And then when it came out that the fans want to boycott the game, we have to go into political mode, don't we? We have to get someone that can play the political game.
You said you've reached out to fans groups and meetings are perhaps going to take place as early as next week. How confident are you that as Celtic supporters you can find common ground and we can get back to having a full stadium?
Well, just want to tell you a wee story. I was in the centre of...
Oh, here we go. This is classic, absolute classic politician bullshit. Let me tell you a wee story. You've got to remember, winning the hearts and minds, divide and conquer. These people are experts at it in their field, you know. And we'll listen to this said fabricated story.
Glasgow last night, I bumped into 4 young guys who I guess would have been at the weekend standing up saying they hated the board.
See what I mean? Total bullshit.
We had a good conversation. I explained some of our difficulties in addressing these issues. They listened, they put their point of view, and at the end of the day they said thanks for listening, and I said thanks for talking to me. And I think if I could do that with every Celtic supporter inside the ground, we'd reach the same mutually respectful conclusion. And that's not quite possible. But
yes, it is. There's a thing called a microphone that goes around the touchline at Celtic Park, and it goes onto the tannoy system Funnily enough, at Celtic Park. And at the beginning of the game, the guy on the mic goes, "Let's make some noise for the boys." You could easily go down and take the mic at half time. Any game, any home game, you could take the mic at half time and make an announcement to the fans. Bullshit comments like that you can't have that conversation with the complete fan base. You've got to have your secret little meetings with individual fan groups to divide and conquer the fans and make sure that they're not together.
Supporter inside the ground would reach the same mutually respectful, said, "Thanks for talking to me." And I think if I could do that with every Celtic supporter inside the ground, we'd reach the same mutually respectful conclusion. And that's not quite possible, but it's the kind of model I want to see. And I want to, that we focus a lot on particular groups of supporters, but there's tens of thousands of Celtic supporters inside
Divide and conquer here.
The ground. And they, as they expressed, many of them feel the same frustrations about communication, about having an input to the club, about knowing what's going on. The thing that comes up repeatedly is we want to know what's going on. So
you want to know what's going on, but you can't find a way to talk to the fans. You've produced an app. You could put out a statement on your own app that will beep in every single Celtic fan's hand. It will come up and it will beep in their hands. And they will look at it. Statement from the club to the fans. You have the emails of every single supporter that has ever bought a ticket for the club. You have the email address of every single supporter that has a season ticket. To say that you cannot get in touch with every single fan and communicate the way that you would like to is an absolutely ridiculous statement, Brian Wilson. And I, for one, will call you out on that tonight. All you're doing is you're trying to divide and conquer before the weekend's game. And by making up stories, of course, we have no idea who these four gentlemen allegedly were, or if this actually happened. It's very rarely like someone of Brian Wilson's stature would be walking around the West End of Glasgow on his own on a dreich night and bumping into four young Celtic lads and having a civilised conversation about Celtic Football Club. Bullshit. Absolute bullshit. Anyway, he praised Martin O'Neill, he praised Sean Maloney and the rest of the coaching staff for the job that they've done during their first spell and since returning. He then went on to say that he thinks that it is in our own hands for winning the league and such like. But this is a plea more than anything. And clip this and put this on your socials, whatever. This is to the four alleged gentlemen, Celtic fans in Glasgow, that bumped into Brian Wilson and had a very nice and interesting conversation. Did it happen? Please step forward if it did and confirm. And then we might have a little bit of, maybe a little bit more respect because there may be a tiny little bit of truth about his statement. But it's easy for someone that is of a political nature. One of the world's worst at doing it is Nigel Farage. I was down the pub and I met some geezers and they'll tell you this story and this is what you're thinking and this is the way we go forward. Leave politics out of football, you tell us, Brian Wilson. You leave your political games out of football. Get on the microphone at Celtic Park and speak to the fans. Do not use communication or the lack of communication or the way that you want to speak to everyone as a whole as a barrier. It is not a barrier. You can sit inside Celtic Park and you can do your cosy little interview and make up stories. But I know, and I've met you at events, And I know that you get very, very guarded when aimed with the truth and the realities of Celtic. And you get very deflective. Think back to an independence campaign thing in Dunfermline, and I'm sure you'll remember me, as other events at Celtic Park. But anyway, we move on, because I think that Brian Wilson is an absolute dinosaur that should be nowhere near a Celtic Football Club.
That's the channel that I really want to develop over the next few weeks. Of course, deal with each individual group, but also deal with the broad mass of Celtic supporters and give them what they are totally reasonably asking for, is information, understanding, and seeing a route back to where we should be, which is a full stadium, all behind the team. That's all I want. It's all I've ever wanted.
It's all you've ever wanted. It's all you've ever wanted. But since you made the statement, and there are 230 Celtic fans not being allowed back into Celtic Park, not given a reason that they're not allowed back into Celtic Park, just told that they're banned from Celtic Park. Should the boycott be stopped? Lauren asked earlier on. No, it shouldn't. If anything, now is the time to ramp it up. There was an email that came through today from the Celtic Fans Collective saying that, talking about other types of protests that could happen before the game. And at the meeting, it was decided that they haven't reached out. I run the Brazen Head bus. I'm well involved with the collective, although the collective didn't act right the other night. In my opinion, they didn't, mate. They didn't. I'm going to get that one up. Didn't act the other night, in my opinion, but what I've heard nothing from Wilson. Spot on, mate. You'll know that the collective put out the email today saying that there wasn't going to be any other demonstrations. There's going to be no demonstration at the front of the stadium. The Celtic Fans Collective they put a little bit of pressure on, and then they press the clutch. Don't know. It's an insult to dinosaurs. It is, say. It is, isn't it? So Mealy Boy says they haven't reached out. I run the Brazen Head bus. I'm well involved with the Celtic Collective, although the collective didn't act right the other night, in my opinion, but we've heard nothing from Wilson. So there we go. The Celtic Fans Collective, as of tonight, from someone that is well in with the collective, have heard nothing. Nothing. I am going to just double check. I'm going to jump onto the land of Twitter, because Jesus, what's got dizzy. Check my blood pressure. What's Celtic do it, yeah? Because you've got to get some of the comments that come in for this. So, Ryan says that Oxlade-Chamberlain move has stalled. Stuart, he's coming with a super chat. Welcome to the new members of the channel. Yes, welcome to all the new members. Thank you for that, Tony. Absolutely fantastic. And I'm going to keep this one up for the majority of the evening. There's 417 comments already. Political games. Telling a story is a sales technique, not just political. It's to get skepticism, but there's a chance to talk. Isn't what the groups wanted. Well, Sugarman, just read the statement that is on the screen. Do you know? Ryan says the deal has stalled. Well, where is it coming up with that? Let me just do a check. Brian Wilson's story about four lads is like a Christmas Dickinson story. I don't know where he's heard it because I'm not seeing it online anywhere. Listen, there was one or two comments like that during so we just leave it at that. Anyway, let me just double check. I'm going to get this up on the screen. This couldn't have happened to a better person, to be fair, because she's a wee Rangers fan. But I think that's actually quite funny. Right, I'm going to put this up on the screen, and let me see what your thoughts are on this, because this is Jon Lassie I'll take this one down just now, from Sky, doing this drive twice and one day for absolutely no reason wasn't how I would have chosen to spend my Wednesday. Breaking news, Aberdeen Celtic game. So she obviously thought that the game was going to go ahead. The fact that she was almost at Aberdeen when she got the call, or when it came through, that the game was off, which means that Sky was already up there. They'd spent all their money and got all their cameras all set up and all the rest of it. So, I mean, what do you take of that? Do you think that I don't know. Do you think is there any even point even thinking about it? Let me get the Braves Ned bus back up. The Scottish Sun are saying that the deal has stalled. Do we really believe the Sun newspaper? It wasn't the Sun newspaper that broke the story about it was London papers. I know the Sun's a London paper, but I think that if there was anyone going to break the story, it wouldn't be the Sun. But we'll wait and see, because the Sun just love trying to get things wrong. And I'll just do a quick update here. It is a game of hearts and mind, because you're starting to see. This is the headlines that you're now getting after the statement by Brian Wilson. Brian Wilson issues Celtic boycott response as chairman sidesteps three demands, which he did. He sidestepped them completely. Here's the hearts and minds part. Celtic chief sends message to mutinous supporters as he uses story of four fans as an example. It's almost like going to war. Do you know what I mean? It is almost like going to war. It's very, very political in the way that the interview was. Celtic chief sends message to mutinous supporters. There's a mutiny! Off with their heads, you fucking savages! We just want you to sing. Oh wait, we can't sing because the groups that start the singing are out of the ground. You want to get them back in so they could start singing, mate? Nah, we'll just leave that for a couple of weeks. We'll speak to some other groups first of all. I have asked let me just get rid of that. I am waiting to hear back from someone, but It's been reported on the Scottish Sun. Ryan says it's been reported on the Scottish Sun. Thanks for that. I just didn't know. It's been reported on the Sun that the deal is off. I'm going to keep this one on just to show Brian Wilson that there is live active fans within certain organisations. But anyway, another headline: Celtic chief responds to mass boycott threats as chairman claims he has reached out to fans. This is about getting this is all about getting the information out to as a wide an audience as possible, so that it can turn the Celtic supporters on each other. You know, by saying to the Celtic fans, by pleading, you know, it's up to the individual. It's up to the individual if they want to boycott. Brian Wilson will remember the boycotts of in the way that things went in the 1990s. He's well aware of what happened in the 1990s and how the Celtic fans ultimately helped by the Bank of Scotland facilitate change at the club. But can we do enough this time? For me, it was like Brian Wilson was buying time. He was buying time. He never spoke about, obviously, that there is. And listen, I've said my piece about. I didn't even want to get into this tonight because the negativity that's round the club. I actually changed the title of the video because, and I left the thumbnail the same because the thumbnail was what was the thumbnail again? The thumbnail said, "We're handing it to them," and the whole focus of the video was meant to be about the negativity. And before I go any further, and I should have done this at the beginning of the video, I did do it on Twitter today. I'd like to send out my condolences to Big John Hartson and his family at this time, whose brother sadly passed away this morning. And my thoughts are with you, big man. I've met John a couple of times. I've spoke to him on the phone. Funnily enough, John Hartson was at an event, and he got the phone off my brother and did a video call with me and sat and spoke to me for about 5 minutes. Even though I was in a restaurant in the middle of a meal, I was like, wait a minute, John Hartson's on the phone here. And I sat and had a 5-minute one-on-one with John Hartson. And it was hardly anything. It was about football. It was just about life and just stuff. It was great. So my condolences go out to you, John. I can only imagine. I can't even imagine what you're going through because I've not lost a brother. I've lost uncles and cousins and stuff, and I know how hard that is. But when you lose your brother, it's heavy stuff, you know. And especially since you've lost a sister as well. So anyway, let's get back to Celtic because that's what John would want us to do. He'd want us to get back to Celtic. And ultimately, that's what we need to do because Brian Wilson offers meetings with Celtic supporters groups. Celtic chief responds to mass boycotts threats as chairman claims he has reached out to fans. Anyway, are we handing the mainstream media? Are we handing the mainstream media negativity? Before the Celtic even released that statement tonight, I mean, the video was all going to be around the fact that we're handing negativity to the media, and it's the same kind of negativity that was around the time that we lost all the points. And I just hope that Martin O'Neill can motivate the team, and I know the way that, I mean, Martin O'Neill taking the players up to Aberdeen to stay the night before, taking the whole squad up. It'll be interesting to see what he says tomorrow in the press conference. The thing is you're not going to get a lot of information about from Martin O'Neill now, because the narrative of tomorrow's press conference will all be about the boycott. It'll be dictated to by the media about the boycott, the narrative of what. The first question that I would ask is it doesn't even matter, because when the media get in front of them tomorrow, there's going to be one thing and one thing on their mind, and that's boycott. There's going to be nothing about the chance of players coming in. I don't think they maybe get one question. Martin O'Neill will say, there's nothing to report on that yet. I don't think that Celtic will come out and say anything if the deal has fallen through. Celtic, it was only Martin O'Neill will have his back covered with it if it does fall through, because Martin O'Neill said, look, there's clubs down in London that are interested. There was no one in Scotland that come out and said. But listen, when it comes to it, ultimately, Martin O'Neill should be asked about how the squad are feeling and how he plans to motivate the team going forward to win games, with or without fans being there. Let me just check some comments a second. Sorry, I'm just. Two seconds. Do it and do it. And then I do this. Four young lads with no selfies or no proof. Yeah, especially in this day and age. You would think that was if there was any people out talking to Brian Wilson, they would have selfies on it and be all over social media, but it didn't happen. But anyway, we move on. Are we giving the media just free negativity when it comes to Celtic? Maybe that should be the poll. And do you trust what Brian Wilson said in his interview this evening? We've done a poll on it. There's 440 votes. And yeah, I'm just saying that. Wilson sounds totally embarrassing with that made-up tale. It is like a made-up tale, isn't it? But anyway, do you trust what said, considering this statement from the Brazen Head bus that has been put on the channel in direct response from Wilson? Why is that just cut out? Do you trust Brian Wilson? Is the poll 445 votes? Since Brian Wilson will like a poll, he'll be glad to know if he's watching this tonight. He won't be. That only 17% trust what you said, Brian. 62% said no, and 21% reckons that you're just buying time. So that's an interesting one. These four lads don't exist. We can't even sign a player that's a free agent. It's no kick the ball, exactly. House is Oxlade Chamberlain coming in. Not that I can't see anything apart from I can't see it. And nobody seems to be talking about it. Bit of respect for Mr. Wilson. He's been at Celtic how long? Do you want to know how long he's been at Celtic? He's been bleeding Celtic dry since 2005. Since 2005. He's a labour unionist that is against independence. But if you want to give him your support, that's fine. I'm a nationalist, and I always have been. But anyway, there is no way would I give him respect, because I know how little regard he actually thinks of working class fans, even though he says he's working class, and he's far from it. Having spoke to him and having had conversations with him in person, I know exactly what type of person Brian Wilson is. But anyway, we're all allowed opinions. It's just a game of opinions and hearts and mind. The collective aren't invited to next week. This is Smoke Mirrors. Too long. Yeah, it is too long. Far too long. I'm still trying to find this Scottish Sun. Right, now, I've just also heard back. I have just heard back from somebody that runs a lot of buses out of Ireland, and they have not heard from Celtic either. So the breaking news tonight is the fact that Baz, there are so many CSCs, you know, that could vouch for the Brian Wilson's research. Kieran, just as you wrote that, I've had word back from a guy that runs a big load of buses out of Ireland, and he has heard nothing from Celtic as it stands tonight. And he was in one of the first meetings, and is not part of the collective, because they're not part of the collective, but they were in the original meeting, fan meeting, that a Celtic State of Mind were in as well, that lasted 3 hours in the club. So there you go. There you go. Celtic haven't reached out. As it stands at 8:39 on Thursday the 5th of February, they haven't reached out to anyone I know, which is interesting. And the Oxlade Chamberlain, I mean, there's nothing flashing up on any of the sites. So I wouldn't believe a word. Colin Wilson's stupid names online is pathetic and childish. I've had him call me names in person, so do you know what I mean? The interview was on years ago. Fuck's sake, the phone who reached out yet. Wouldn't you? No. Opinionated Glaswegian. Listen to what he said. We'll get the interview back up, right? Because I'm not having that. Let's get the interview back up where he was asked.
Because of the focus imperative out was, and what suddenly unity within the
Position where we are unified. Well, you and the club do in order to
very was a way. There hasn't over the supporters, and then let you.
I've reached out to.
Here we go.
So
right?
just going back on that, you have reached out to to fans groups. How much do you hope that, in a sense, getting round the table can sort out the issues at hand?
Well, to some extent, you know, I think the other side is saying unity inside the stadium is one thing. We're not going to agree on everything about some of these issues.
The question was, you have reached out to these supporters groups. That was the question. There's no denying that. So coming on and saying it was only a few hours ago, he was asked during the interview, you have reached out, and he failed to answer.
But we can talk about them, but don't let it distract from what's going on inside the stadium. That's all I'm asking for. But I don't see any insuperable barriers. What I want to see is a full Celtic Park.
He still hasn't answered the yes or no answer. Typical politician. He was asked the question, you've reached out? We're going to play it again for those in doubt. Just let you hear this once again.
How much do you hope that, in a sense, getting round the table can sort out the issues at hand?
Well, to some extent.
So just going back on that, you have reached out to fans groups. How much do you hope that, in a sense, getting round the table can sort out the issues at hand?
Well,
you have reached out. That was the question. And he did not give a yes or no answer. He did not. He just blabbered on about what he hopes to happen. And then we've had groups saying that they've heard nothing from him. But anyway, absolute bonkers. And I think that it sounds like me or Lear Starmer. Anyway, the hole's getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Reaching out to who? Well, I said Sean. I am going to get rid of that one, and I am going to put this one back up just for clarity. But anyway, do we think that, do you believe Brian Wilson this evening? Big chunky fans, 500 odd on the vote so far, 62 say no. Don't believe him. Don't believe him. And are we handing, I'm going to end that poll there, actually at 500. Are we handing the mainstream media negative headlines on a plate for Celtic? And I think ultimately we are. Anyway, it's not the way that I wanted it to be tonight, but it's the way that Celtic have made it be. Anyway, get the search on for the 4 young lads. Yes, we did ask that. What's the story on Ox now? Well, according to someone, it is on Scottish Sun site, but I can't find it. They have claimed Robert Grieve.
Robert Grieve, with me as ever, is my sidekick, Mr.
Oh, that's a little shy. He says that the move, that this is the Sun newspaper, remember, and he said that Celtic moves for Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain is hanging in the balance. He understands that the move has stalled after further talks on Thursday. It is believed that the 32-year-old would not be named in the Europa squad if he signed. Oh, right. So he was only wanting to come if he was going to get in the Europa squad to put himself in the shop window. It's also understood that the length of contract on offer could be the potential stumbling block. Celtic wanted a deal until the end of the season. The players' camp were hoping for a clause option that would see the contract extended beyond the summer. But he will not be playing for Celtic in Europe. Now that's down to Martin O'Neill, that one. Either Martin O'Neill wanted him in to play the European game, or they didn't. And Martin O'Neill just wanted them in to bolster the squad between now and the end of the season. Listen, if it falls down, it's no big deal, in my opinion, because he's a 32-year-old that's been without a club since last summer. Anyway, right, that is me done and dusted for tonight. I'm seeing that the comments are yeah, I've just read it. It's on the site next to the reports that the Huns have offered the rat that was running about the stadium a 5-year contract because he's speed. But anyway, thank you to everyone who is on the channel this evening. It's been quite a busy night tonight, and I'll see you all in the morning, and hopefully we'll have an update. And it's going to be interesting over the next couple of days because Celtic fans are looking to boycott. Celtic board have come out and said, let's talk. Fans groups have said they've never came and spoke to us, and fans are turning on each other. Typical political divide and conquer. But anyway, on that note, try and have a fantastic evening wherever you are. Celtic fans all around the world.